From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Next Gen Report right here on AM 950 KPRC. If you just happen to be listening right now, usually you listen to maybe the Walton and Johnson highlights that usually air during this time. I am very pleased to be here in this special Wednesday edition with you this afternoon. It really is a privilege. It really is. And you have happened to stumble upon live local radio. Isn't that a beautiful thing? I am right here in Houston, Texas, broadcasting to you right now. There's not a whole lot of that going on in this industry anymore. It's not the way the industry has gone, which, is fine. But it does make this kind of rare and unique. You are hearing this for the first time. It's the first time it's been said, and you're hearing it right now. That's kind of cool. There's a neat little factor there. I am Ethan Buchanan. This is the Next Gen Report. We're filling in this time slot here for the next hour or so. Before we get into everything we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about a little bit of faith. We're going to talk about a little heritage, things of that nature. And we have a very fitting sponsor for those things, Deus Volt lapel pins, DEUSVULT lapelpins.com. If you don't know what Deus Volt means, it's Latin. It's a phrase that means essentially God wills it. It was used by the Crusaders throughout multiple different crusades as they defended the West, defended Europe, defended Christendom from expansionist Islamists who were, conquering and pillaging and all that and the other. And I think this company does a great job of really summarizing both American culture and heritage into some really unique designs, and also Christian faith and Christian heritage into some unique designs and lapel pins. These are $6 or $6.50. If it's one of the more complicated pins with a fancy design and whatnot, but not very expensive, high quality pins. Go check them out. DeusVoltLapelPins.com. See if there's one you like. If there is and it's not in stock, get on the notify me list so that when it's in stock, you can go purchase it. Or if you see one you like, purchase it right now. Use promo code NEXTPIN2026. You will get 10% off. So it's a great deal on a great quality product. Now, we've got a lot to talk about today, as is the case every single week. Obviously, there's everything going on in Iran. That's crazy. We're going to get into that. I mean, every 5 minutes, the situation changes. It's insane. It's impossible to keep track of. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some what I think personally, and this is not an accusation, I'm just saying this is what I think it is, I think is congressional corruption. Now, as a general rule, I try to just assume every person in Congress is to some degree corrupt, and that way I'm never really that disappointed. But Ilhan Omar is a prime example of this. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Congress people don't make an insane amount of money. I don't know exactly what this salary is. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like $170,000 a year, which from where I stand, I think that's a decent salary. I think that's just enough money for anyone to live on. All right. Even in Washington, D.C., where I know things are expensive, that's plenty of money. Now, you're not going to become super duper rich, but you'll be pretty well off doing the job of a congressperson. Now, $170,000 a year, and let's assume you're being financially responsible and putting some into savings, saving money for retirement or what have you, and then you've definitely got bills to pay, so you can subtract that, and most of these people have families, so there's expensive there. So my point is, at $170,000 a year, you shouldn't have a net worth of anywhere north of $1 million unless you're independently wealthy, which is also the case for people in Congress oftentimes, so that's fine. But when you start pulling in figures like $30 million, that starts to raise some questions. And that's where Ilhan Omar was. Her financial reporting or what have you estimated that she was between $6 and $30 million. That's according to CBS News. And now we, after months of scrutinizing and asking her about this, saying, hey, where did you get this money? You're a third worlder, a Somali immigrant who got citizenship and then got into Congress, and now you're worth $30 million. You shouldn't be worth that much. Where's that money coming from? And we had a number of excuses thrown out. Oh, her husband owned a wine business. Her husband did this and that. And essentially this was all like, oh, it was her husband's money. And then she turned around and said, according to CBS News, actually, I never had that money at all. It was just an accounting error. That's crazy. Here's the headline from CBS. Rep. Ilhan Omar amends disclosures blaming initial $30 million on filing error. It was an accountant's mistake. Oh, her accountant fudged the numbers by $30 million. Democratic Rep. Ilhan Omar has amended her financial disclosure forms, sharply reducing the reported value of assets after her initial filing error prompted Republican calls for investigations into her finances. The amended disclosure was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Omar's original financial disclosure form stated that the companies co-owned by her husband, Tim Maynett, were worth between $6 million and $30 million. This apparent sharp jump in wealth against the couple's 2024 filings triggered scrutiny from the Republican-led House Oversight Committee and President Trump, who threatened investigations. Omar's joint assets with her husbands are now listed as ranging between $18,000 and $95,000, according to the amended filing. That is crazy. That is crazy. How do you mess that up that badly? I have a hard time believing her accountant is that bad at accounting. That is an insane discrepancy. Now, I mean, I imagine a wine business, even a not too well-off wine business, would be worth more than just under $100,000. And they do own a wine business. They've made no bones about that. That is crazy to me. I don't understand how this happens. And maybe that's because I'm not an accountant. If you happen to be and you're listening to me right now, reach out to me on X, @ Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. You can shoot me a DM. You can just leave me a comment. If you have any idea how in the world this could possibly happen, please let me know. If you're listening on the free iHeartRadio app, use the talkback mic. Tell me how in the world this happens. I don't believe this. I just don't believe this. I would have believed you more if you hadn't come back and tried to amend your statements. If you had just said, yeah, I'm worth $30 million and it's legit, I would have believed that more than, oh, my accountant screwed up and I'm actually worth less than fractions of what I said I was. This just doesn't make any sense to me at all. If nothing else, shouldn't her accountant be charged for this? I mean, I don't know. It's the Democrats, man. It's Ilhan Omar. We've actually got a clip that I want to play you in just a second. We're going to talk a little bit more about this coming right up. I'm Ethan Buchanan. This is the Next Gen Report. Stay put. Alrighty, welcome back. This is the Next Gen Report, live right now on AM 950 KPRC. Once again, I need help on this because I, honest to God, can't make heads or tails of it. How in the world do you, let's say you're a professional accountant. How in the world do you screw up somebody's net worth on official government filings and paperwork by $30 million? Because that's what Ilhan Omar is claiming happened. Her accountant screwed up her paperwork and accidentally reported that she was worth almost $30 million more than she actually was. That's not a small oopsie-doopsie. That's not that should have been a 2 and it was a 1, or that should have been a 1 and it was a 3, or something like that. That's $30 million, okay? How do you screw that up? If you know how a mistake that big happens on official paperwork, let me know. @ Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. Fill me in. And listen, maybe there's a logical explanation to all this. I don't know what it is, and I would like to, all right? And I'm not the only one that would like to. A ton of Americans want to know how Ilhan Omar, the Democrat representative from Somalia, was able to, 1, do this, and 2, get away with it. And that's a legitimate question. But if you ask it, Ilhan Omar gets all snarky and upset at you for just asking what I think should be a very fair question. Here this is. This is a reporter from Lindell TV. That's Mike Lindell of MyPillow fame. And he's got a TV network, I guess. I don't know. But here is one of his reporters asking Ilhan Omar, hey, some people are curious about this. Can you explain what happened here? Can you tell us what exactly is going on? These are confusing numbers. This is a weird discrepancy. And she's just like, no, I don't want to tell you anything. Yeah. Take a listen.
Congresswoman Omar, the last time I spoke to you, you said that I was stupid for asking you about your financial disclosure, but there's some discrepancies on there. Would you like to explain that? How did you make such a big mistake on
I still do think you're stupid for asking me anything.
I am?
Yes.
Well, what about the American people who are wondering how you made such a big
I have
mistake?
explained to the American people.
What's the explanation?
I have given them the explanation.
Do you want to tell our viewers? Because they're
I don't want to tell you jack.
Oh.
How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
God, that video infuriates me. If you want to actually see that instead of just listening to it, by the way, we're recording the video right now as we broadcast. It'll be on X probably 30 to 45 minutes after the show is done. So you can check it out there at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan, and you can watch that for yourself. But oh my gosh, actually, I already explained it already. No, you didn't. You just said your accountant screwed that up. That's not an explanation. All that does is raise more questions. Again, how does your accountant make such a big mistake? How do you not notice it? Like, honestly, even if, okay, let's say I outsource my finances to an accountant. Are you still not even going to put eyes on the filings before she sends them in? Or he sends them in, or whoever? You're not going to have a quick sit down before they put all the paperwork into the system? Just to go over, hey, this is what I have, this is what I'm sending in. Again, I'm not an accountant, but I have a hard time believing a mistake that big could just happen on accident, oopsie, and then on top of that, not be noticed at all. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then, gosh, just how snarky Ilhan Omar was, how entitled she was. You're not entitled to an answer, mind you. She's a public servant. She works for the government. Presumably, most of the money she has comes from your tax dollars, but you're not entitled to an answer. And if you ask her, she's going to look down on you. I already explained it. I don't want to tell you jack crap. What are we doing here? But this is the attitude that we get from a whole host of people. And by people, I mean immigrants. This is a common problem amongst immigrants in this country. People come here not because they want to contribute, not because they want to help build up the United States and make it better. It's because they realize that they can take things from the United States and they want to do that. We see this time and time again, and Ilhan Omar's entire job is to just facilitate that system. And so she's going to. And she's not going to answer to you because she's, frankly, if we're being honest, not answerable to you. You, the American. She doesn't work for you. She works for the Somali population in Minnesota. That's her job. That's who she's answerable to. And they don't care how much money she defrauds as long as they can also defraud. That's what we keep seeing. And if it's not defrauding, it's just abusing the welfare system. I don't think enough people understand that. The abuse from the immigrant population, both legal and illegal, in the United States of the welfare system is insane. Staggering numbers. And listen, I have nothing against in-concept immigration. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I like the idea of people coming in and contributing and becoming Americans. But the two qualifiers there are you have to contribute and you have to become an American, which means you check the whatever at the door. There is no hyphenated American, and you contribute. You cannot be a net drain on the system, but what we see time and time again is they are a net drain on the system. If you're just a horde of Somalians in Minneapolis, you're constantly defrauding the American taxpayer and not assimilating to our culture. If you're Ilhan Omar, you're probably, I think, but this is not an accusation, so I don't know, defrauding the American taxpayer again as a congressperson. And even if you're not, you're just sucking up our welfare. Check this out. This is from the Center for Immigration Studies. This has been floating around for a while, but it was republished in February. The SIPP in 2024 indicates that 53% of households headed by immigrants, naturalized citizens, legal residents, and illegal immigrants used one or more major welfare programs. This compares to 37% of U.S.-born households. Now, I would argue that 37% is too high. I feel like if we just set some basic standards and requirements, we could get that number way down. But nevertheless, 39% of Americans is one thing. 53% of immigrants, many of whom are illegal, most of whom have no interest in assimilating or contributing, are on major welfare programs. And I'm willing to bet that it's not just one. I bet you it's a handful of programs. Because once you get on one, then you can go get another one, and then you can go get another one after that. What are we doing? And you have to start asking the question, okay, well, why are we letting these people in the first place? What is the point? And that's an honest question that I still can't get an answer to. Why in the world should I, as an American, subsidize this? No one can explain that to me. Why? What does it benefit me or my children to just be the piggy bank for Somalia? Why is that my lot as an American? Is that the pitch? I've been getting into kind of history and great moments of, sacrifice and commitment to building recently. Yesterday was April 21st. If you're a student of Texas history, you know that that's the day we defeated Santa Anna. We, the Texans, defeated Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto. Incredible odds, outnumbered significantly, just steamrolled a much superior in numbers and training and equipment army and won independence. And this follows, of course, the sacrifices at the Alamo and La Bahia. Is that why they did this? Because that's the case that you basically have to make. You have to look me dead in the eye and say, yes, the reason 189 men gave their lives at the Alamo, the reason another couple of hundred men gave their lives at La Bahia, and the reason 900-ish men charged the Mexican camp at San Jacinto and 9 of them died was so that one day their posterity, me, would be able to subsidize Somalians. Because that's what's happening. I'm in Texas and I'm still subsidizing this. This is ridiculous. It's not what the country is built for. It's not what we Americans should be interested in passing down to our children. Why? Why would we give this to more people? This is a burden. This is a problem. What are we doing here? But if you start asking questions about this fraud, about this abuse, about these discrepancies, you're the bad person. I reject that entirely. We'll be right back with more. Alrighty, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. Once again, I am Ethan Buchanan. You can follow me on X at @Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. If you like the show, if you like what you hear, maybe you've heard this for the first time just now, you've never heard my voice before, welcome to the party. Follow me on X if you enjoy what you've heard so far. You can find a whole lot more of the content. We've got the show, again, right here at AM 950 KPRC, Sundays at 7 p.m. If you want to catch up, you can go watch past episodes of the show there. And I did say watch. This is a video format. I'm broadcasting live, but I'm also recording as I broadcast live. There's a lot of visual elements you're not going to want to miss out on. That's where you can find them on my X page. Now, I want to talk about something that is almost definitely going to be forgotten, but absolutely should not. This story that I'm about to show you should be the biggest story in the United States for at least a couple weeks, man. But I guarantee you, by the end of tonight, it will be completely forgotten. So I'm bringing it to you now while I have the chance. This is insane, what we're witnessing here. Let me start with giving you some background. You hear all the time about how racist America is. You hear this primarily from the left. America's so evil. America's so racist. La-di-da-di-da. And now objective reality, day-to-day life would tell you that that's just not the case. I mean, sure, there are racists out there. I'm not denying that. But the idea that racism is just embedded in every corner of America and it's inescapable is not the case. I would argue that racism, while real, is the outlier. It's the odd one out. It's the weird thing, not the norm. I would also argue that it probably hasn't been for quite some time. At least 40, maybe 50, probably around 60 years. Racism has not been the norm. Now, you still see all the time these big demonstrations and marches from various neo-Nazi groups, right? So obviously racism is still alive and well, and these neo-Nazi groups are still alive and well. You even sometimes, every now and again, you'll still even see a Klan demonstration pop up every now and again. And so you might think, okay, well, clearly there's still work to do. Now, a lot of folks online, especially folks my age, has started looking at this and saying, okay, well, this doesn't add up. I'm not racist. Most of the people I know aren't racist. So where are all of these racists? Why do they only happen to show up exactly when it's most convenient for the left? That's kind of weird. So there have been some conspiracy theories thrown out. I've partaken in some of these myself. There's, those theories that, okay, well, these are all just feds. They're trying to maybe run some sort of entrapment scheme or do some sort of psyop, something or other. It's all just deep state federal agents doing weird stuff or whatever. The actual answer is even crazier. And we do have the actual answer. It came out yesterday. So, for context, let's start with the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, you've probably heard of the Southern Poverty Law Center, especially if you're in the South. They've been around for a while. They're kind of a big deal here. They're very woke. And their whole thing is racism is everywhere and we have to destroy it. It's DEI, it's CRT, it's whatever you want to call it. Here's how they describe themselves. A beacon of hope for 55 years. The Southern Poverty Law Center stands as a beacon of hope, fighting white supremacy and various forms of injustice to help create a multiracial democracy where we can all live and thrive. Today calls for us to maintain our resolve in the face of another fight for justice. Now, you have to start asking the question, what is the other fight for justice? What is this multiracial democracy they're trying to create? I mean, we're not a democracy in the United States, and anyone with an understanding of our constitutional form of government, our constitutional Republican form of government, will understand that, but the Southern Poverty Law Center doesn't. But regardless, let's say with the colloquial definition, we have a multiracial democracy. What are you talking about? So what are you fighting? Your battle is over. They're a warrior without a cause. I mean, by every stretch of the imagination, black people can vote, black people can hold public office and do constantly all the time. So what is this supposed discrimination you're fighting? I mean, discrimination is quite literally illegal. You can't do it. It's a violation of the law at almost every single instance. So what in the world is the Southern Poverty Law Center still doing? You would think that at this point, they would just kind of wrap it up and say, all right, we did it. Let's go us. Pats on the back. Shut her down. We're done. That's not what happened. Actually, the exact opposite of that happened. According to a federal indictment, the Southern Poverty Law Center, allegedly, was just creating racism, funding even the actual Ku Klux Klan, just so that they can then, I guess, turn around and fight the Ku Klux Klan? What? I'm not kidding. That's what happened. Office of Public Affairs, U.S. Department of Justice, justice.gov. Federal grand jury charges Southern Poverty Law Center for wire fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Between 2014 and 2023, the SPLC secretly funneled more than $3 million in donated funds to individuals who were associated with various violent extremist groups, including the Ku Klux Klan, Aryan Nation, and the National Socialist Party of America. So, just so we all understand each other, once again, allegedly, what happened here was people donate to the Southern Poverty Law Center because the Southern Poverty Law Center markets itself as fighting racism and racist organizations and racist policies. So they donate their hard-earned money to the Southern Poverty Law Center because we got to do away with the old racisms. And then what the Southern Poverty Law Center does is give that money to the Ku Klux Klan in order to fund basically these demonstrations, these operations that you see, so that they can then turn around and be the resistance. That's where we are right now. That is insane. Kash Patel and some others at the FBI came out and did a press conference about this yesterday. I want to play it to you, just so you can understand how ridiculous the world we're living in. Again, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making this up. This is exactly what has been happening since at least 2014. And again, this is all alleged. These are all allegations. None of this has been proven in court yet. However, I would venture to guess, if it is proven that this was happening since 2014, chances are it's probably been happening for a long time. Because I don't know if you know this, but we've been effectively a post-racial society for a while. A good long while. Take a listen to the press conference from Kash Patel and others at the FBI.
What we're here today is to announce what the general just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud.
This is insane, and you should be pissed off about this. You should. You should be legitimately angry about this, because things that the SPLC was doing, allegedly, were used as ammunition against, chances are, if you're listening, you and your own people. I'm a Southern American. I, for years, as a white man, have been labeled a racist. And these actions that were paid for by the very people claiming to be fighting racism were used as political ammunition against me, my values, my family's history, etc., etc. I'm infuriated by this, and you should be as well. Alrighty, welcome back once again at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. Follow me on X. I am going to continue to talk about this news about the Southern Poverty Law Center. Again, because I really truly believe that this is one of the most important stories, maybe even of the year, if I'm being quite honest. And just in terms of domestic policy in American society and day-to-day life, we have been told incessantly how racist we are, how evil we are, how vile we are, how much we just hate brown people, la-di-da-di-da. This has been constantly constantly thrown at us. And the ammunition with which those guns were filled was all of these different marches and rallies and la-di-da-di-da that it turns out were funded by the SPLC, allegedly. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing in the world. And I want to point you back to Charlottesville, 2017. This was considered one of the greatest evils of the modern age, right? And I still remember this. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was almost 10 years, but it wasn't really that long ago. Charlottesville, 2017. Of course, all of this really kicks off where this crazy guy goes and shoots up a black church. And they're investigating his home, and they find a Confederate flag hanging in his garage, the Confederate battle flag. You know the one, the X. And of course, this starts a decade or more witch hunt that in some places is still ongoing to this day, where anything that's slightly connected to the Confederacy or to Southern history or Southern culture, even so much as, having a wedding at a plantation in that age, an old plantation that's been turned into just a fancy event venue, even that was considered an act of extreme racism, all because of this. And so that, of course, led to a bunch of Confederate statues all around the South being torn down, being vandalized, what have you, as all part of this decade-long witch hunt. Now, bear in mind, those statues had been there in many cases well over 100 years, some over 150. And now they were a problem all of the sudden. But it was because of all these various instances of racism. Clearly, the Proud Boys and the Aryan Nation and the Ku Klux Klan are still emboldened by these statues. Actually, they're emboldened, allegedly, by paychecks from the SPLC. That's what was actually happening. So I'll point you back to 2017. And one of the statues that comes under fire is a statue of some various Confederate figure in Charlottesville, North Carolina, I believe. And so a bunch of people go out to protest the planned removal or vandalization of this statue. And this has happened before 1,000 times, and it's happened since. People saying, hey, actually, this represents our history. This is part of who we are as a nation. Some of our ancestors, whether you like it or not, are represented by these statues that are honoring, Confederate dead, Confederate missing in action soldiers, what have you. And they've been here for 100 years, and they're part of what this society is, and they need to stay there. That was the original rally. This became the Unite the Right rally, where hundreds of different white supremacist groups all showed up at a completely separate original rally that was just saying, hey, we don't want this statue torn down. This Unite the Right rally happened, and it turned into a riot, and at the end of the day, somebody got ran over and killed. La-di-da-di-da. And this was used to attack Trump. It was used to attack Republicans because it's called the Unite the Right rally, so clearly it's the Republicans. And we still to this day hear about it. I mean, this may have propelled Joe Biden to victory, and at least according to him was his inspiration to get into the race in 2020. And then you find out, actually, this Unite the Right rally, which is supposed to be the great sin of the 2000s by right-wing racists, actually was completely set up by the Southern Poverty Law Center, allegedly. I'm not kidding. Here's the indictment. I'm reading this. This is the actual PDF file from the government of the indictment. Starting in the 1980s, the SPL began operating a covert network of informants who were either associated with violent extremist groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, or who had infiltrated violent extremist groups at the SPLC's direction. These informants were referred to by some individuals within the SPLC as the field sources, or the Fs. Between at least 2014 and 2023, the SPLC paid their Fs in a clandestine manner. Doing so hid the fact that while the SPLC was receiving donation money under the auspices that the funds would be used to dismantle violent extremist groups, This donation money was instead being used in part by the SPLC to pay leaders and others within these same violent extremist groups. That money was then used for the benefit of the individuals as well as the violent extremist groups. Here's where things get really interesting. Example of Fs who were secretly paid by the SPLC include but are not limited to the following. F37, a member of the online leadership chat that planned the 2017 Unite the Right event in Charlottesville, Virginia. Oh, Virginia. I said Carolina. I'm sorry. And attended the event at the direction of the SPLC. F37 made racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC and helped coordinate transportation to the event for several attendees between 2015 and 2023. The SPLC secretly paid F37 more than $270,000. So, just so we all understand each other, and again, I'm angry about this. I truly am. And you should be true. Because this, to a certain extent, should be considered a form of defamation. A bunch of people who just said, hey, this statue has been in our community for hundreds of years, or 150-ish years, and represents a key moment in our community's history, and we think it should stay here. And then the SPLC, while calling them racist, paid a bunch of racists to false flag and crash that party. That's insane. That's insane. And so you may be sitting here wondering, okay, well, why can't we move past racism? Why can't we just move on? Why can't we even go back to, the society of the 90s and the early 2000s? Where we just kind of recognize that, yeah, we're, a mix of races in this country and there's different stereotypes and we can joke about that and have our differences and that's fine. Why can't we go back to that? Because the Southern Poverty Law Center won't make any money if that happens. People won't donate to them anymore because the mission is over. You did it. It's done. You beat racism. Good job. All the money dries up. People made their careers off this. This was their whole job. We can't just let it go. So for 10 years, they have lied to Americans about Americans, demeaned Americans, and then staged these operations in order to fundraise off of them. And again, this has had measurable consequences for the United States of America. If you take Joe Biden at his word, that was the whole reason he ran for office in 2020. And he won. Did he win because of that? I don't know, but that's at least why he ran. So if you want to trace the domino effect of all the lives that were lost, all the fraud that was committed by illegal aliens and by others over the 4 years of Joe Biden's terrible administration, if you take Joe Biden at his word on this, that very first domino to fall was the Southern Poverty Law Center, allegedly, paying members of the Ku Klux Klan, of whatever different group, of whatever neo-Nazi group, to go and instigate a riot at what was supposed to just be a bunch of people getting together and saying, hey, we don't want this statue torn down. I'm livid about this. Everyone should be livid about this. We'll see if this stays in the headlines or if this disappears. This is another good reason to check back in Sunday at 7 p.m. When we will once again have the Next Gen Report right here on AM 950 KPRC. Follow me on X real quick at _Ethan Buchanan. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you Sunday evening.